Defensive back Keionte Scott creates havoc for opposing offenses, and we'll tell you why he should be a top 40 pick.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I'm Damian Parson. That's Keith Sanchez. In today's episode, guys, on today's episode, it's this or that. It is a scenario where we put prospect versus prospect, or who we rather draft based on draft value and projection. Talk about the battle of the X receivers. Denzel Boston versus Big Malachi Fields. Kenyon Sadiq versus Oscar Delp with the tight ends. We'll kick this thing off with that nickel hybrid, safety hybrid. Caleb Downs versus Keionte Scott. Keith, Caleb Downs, a consensus top 15 in terms of draft, projection. We all know most people view him as the top player in the actual class. Would you rather have this or that Caleb Downs in round 1 or Keionte Scott on night 2 of the 2026 NFL Draft?
DP, this may come off hot takey, or this may come off, people may think I'm crazy, but I'll go Keionte Scott round 2. Listen, this has nothing to do, and everybody who's listened to this podcast before know that it has nothing to do with positional value or anything like that, right? Throw all of that stuff out the window. It's honestly not as much about Caleb Downs as much as about Keionte Scott. And when I really watched his film, DP, I said it on our upcoming show, right? The Locked On mock draft, right? Well, all encompassing all 32 teams. Make sure y'all tune in and look out for that. But I said, and I'll say it again, that if you watch the highlights, right, Keionte Scott and Caleb Downs highlights are not that far different. And I know the highlights are the highlights, but if you watch where they play, right, cut on the all 22, they do very similar things. They can line up at free safety, strong safety. There are times when Keionte Scott lines up at linebacker for the Miami Hurricanes. He's physical. He's a guy that inserts himself. Tackling power, range, instincts. He has it all, DP. I think this is more about the conversation that Keionte Scott is a lot closer to Caleb Downs, and when it comes to a talent level, than what I think is having than the conversation that we're having right now.
Yeah, I would say with Keionte Scott, he is a havoc creator. This dude creates so much havoc. We saw it in the Ohio State game, right? Where, like, if you don't block him, you try to run these horizontal screen plays and things like that. Like, you're telling your quarterback to make that throw, you better know what Keionte Scott is before you let that ball out of your hands, right? But because not only can he intercept it, but he's also the type of guy that's going to trigger downhill with such violence and reckless aggression in a good way. When I say reckless, like, he does not mind throwing his body around. And it's not that he's a reckless player. It's just like that way he plays it's like car crashes. Like, but it's intentional for him. Like, he's trying to create that. And you see him blow up blocks. Like, he's gonna run through. If you try to run these quick screens, and you're like, okay, we got a 2x1 set. We're trying to hit the X receiver. We got the slot trying to block Keionte Scott. If he's playing off, yeah, you better climb up. You better get upfield. Like, if you just stand stationary, Keith, and flat-footed and think you're gonna block Keionte Scott triggering downhill, he's running straight through your chest, straight through your face mask. And your teammates probably getting blown up, or it's a PBU or a pick sixes. I think that's what happened against Ohio State. He caught it for a pick and took it for a pick six. So he's a havoc creator for me, Keith. I want to ask you before I go into my decision, how high would you draft a Keionte Scott in this class?
Wow. In this class, DP.
And also, is he a pure nickel for you, or is he hybrid type of safety for you projecting to the NFL?
Yeah, I can answer that one a lot easier. And what I'm gonna say both of them, right? He's both of them. I think he can play both, to be honest with you. And that part comes from the testing, right? I think what he ran a sub for a high 4.3, I believe. 40-yard dash time. So explosive athlete. He's proven that, right? And then, like you said, you watch the physicality of him. He has no problem playing in a box. He's not a guy that shies away from contact. So if you ask me what position, I think he can play both. And I think that there's sometimes they're nickels that are more linebacker nickel, right? Like kind of big safety, whatever. And then there's nickels that are more corner nickels, right? I think he leans more of the corner nickel, but he's physical, right? Like, so I just think he's a pure safety, everything you want in a safety, and they can play the nickel position. So that's how I view him. Then the question you asked was, how high would I take Keionte Scott? Let's say team dependent. I would probably select them within the top 40 picks. I just DP the same way that we discussed Ruben Bain when you talk about that tenacity, and reality that they play with, in the high motor and just wanting to set a physical, violent temperament. I get that from Keionte Scott. I get a guy that wants to play the game with just intent to inflict pain on the offense, right? And at the end of the day, this is football, and it's still those things. And so when I see Keionte Scott, I don't see a guy like I just get a die-hard type of guy, right? Like he's never going to say quit. And that's exactly what you want on your defense.
No, 100%, Keith. So for me, with this or that, this was a little tough because I do like what Keionte Scott brings. And these are, when we talk about Dylan Thunderman and Caleb Downs, the one thing I continue to say with Caleb Downs is he's more physical than Dylan Thunderman. He's a better tackler. He's a better blitzer. He's just a more physical player. Keionte Scott's a more physical, more violent player than Caleb Downs. Here's why I go with this in terms of I'm going Caleb Downs in this situation, Keith, is the versatility. I had to go back to Alabama tape, right? And because Matt Patricia and what he's really done for Ohio State is playing that nickel safety hybrid, two high shells, rotate down, robber technique, being a nickel defender, blitzing, playing in the box. Well, I eat some crow because I felt like that's what my brain has envisioned, because that's the most recent thing I've seen from him. Going back to Alabama, he was playing more free safety, and I had to give him credit. He looked good doing it, Keith. Like the instincts, the ball, like everything was there, right? And it's just a difference of usage, right? So his profile is a little different from me now than it was before. I go with Caleb Downs because of that, the versatility. I think it's a guy that in coverage, he gives you. I don't think either one of these guys, in terms of you talking about walking down to the nickel, are actual pure man-to-man cover guys. I think they're both more suited for zone and everything. Keionte Scott's, like, his instincts are so good in terms of getting downhill. When I look at the instincts from Caleb Downs, it's more so reading the action, passing off action, highly high communicator. Getting to the spot, like that football IQ type situation where he's just he's the guy directing traffic for the defense, right? Setting everybody up where they need to be and things of that nature. So I think with everything that he offers combined, the only thing about it, that to an extent hurts his case is the fact that we don't know how fast he is. We don't know what that speed truly looks like. Now, Keith, as we've always talked about, it's the same thing with quarterbacks. Well, yeah, you can have all the physical tools, but if you're a slow processor, it doesn't really matter, right? And for him, I think, because if I remember correctly, guys, don't quote me on this, and don't tag Ed Reed like I'm talking to. I think I don't believe Ed Reed ran a 4.4. If I remember correctly, I think Ed Reed was like a 4.5 guy.
Yeah, I believe so. I'm pretty sure he was a 4.5.
But he's the prototype that we look for, that we talk about in the free safety, single safety, but it was the instincts, right? I think we all seen that that clip of Tom Brady and Bill Belichick in his office. I don't know if it was a Hard Knocks or whatever it was, early in Tom's career when they were getting ready to face the Ravens, and he was like, "Yeah, we got to find." They were trying to devise a plan to neutralize Ed Reed's impact on the game. So it was like, his 40 time didn't matter in that regard because his instincts were so elite. And I'm not saying that Caleb Downs has those type of instincts, but he does. That's where he plays. He wins from the neck up just mentally. He plays faster than probably he would have ran, and he didn't run. And typically, Keith, when guys don't run, that's kind of precursor of how they feel about their raw speed, right? Just their raw athleticism. But I think he plays a little bit faster than he probably would have time. So I'm going to go with Caleb Downs. It's close because I really like the havoc play. Like, if that, maybe that's something I create, Keith. Maybe, I make a havoc meter, an analytic model for defenders who create havoc. This dude's going to, like, Keionte Scott's going to get you TFLs. He's going to blitz. He's going to get sacks. He's going to make plays in the run game. He's going to blow up receivers. He's a havoc player. When I look at Caleb Downs, he's more of a cerebral quarterback of your defense.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's what's going to make it tough. And I think it's Caleb Downs going in the top 15, right? It's most likely going to happen, right? If you're a better man, but you look at it from the other side of, okay, if it's close, then how high should Keionte Scott go? But then that also gets into the kind of popularity conversation, right? That we have, within the draft that makes it fun. All right, let's do this, DP. Let's switch to the offensive side of the football, right? Let's do Keionte Sadiq versus Oscar Delp. Y'all know, if y'all been listening to this podcast, these are both we like both of these guys, right? So this is probably going to be really tough. Are we going to take Keionte Sadiq in the first round, or will we try to wait to the second round and grab Oscar Delp, this or that? We talk about that coming up next.
If you've ever opened your bank account and thought, where did all my money go? You're not alone. Keeping track of subscriptions, spending, and bills can get overwhelming fast. That's where Rocket Money comes in, helping you take control of your finances all in one place. It tracks all your subscriptions in one spot and can help cancel the ones you don't need with just a few taps. It automatically categorizes your spending so you can actually see where your money is going. And you can set budgets, get alerts, and stay on top of upcoming bills. It just makes everything feel more organized and gives you a clearer picture of your finances day to day. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Join at rocketmoney.com/locked-on. That's rocketmoney.com/locked-on. Before we break down whether or not we'd rather have Keionte Sadiq or Oscar Delp, don't forget to check out the Everyday Club for ad-free episodes and access to our group chat via Discord with me, Keith, and other listeners of the show. Tap the link in the show notes or go to lockedonNFLDraft.supercast.com to join. Keith, when I came up with this one, I said I got to pull at Keith's heartstrings just a little bit on the show because I know he loves both of these players at the same position. We both do. We love Keionte Sadiq. We love Oscar Delp, Keith. This or that. If you're a GM, right? I think real quick to talk about Hines Ward. He talked about how a lot of media people have been taking shots at Jordan Tyson's quote unquote lack of competitive toughness, which is crazy because the dude finished the game with a messed up hamstring instead of leaving out. But nonetheless, he said, listen, and it was truth. Teams are always trying to get you for a discount. Teams are always looking to draft you where the value fits better for them. So if they can get you in round 2, they feel like they can get you. That's the best value, right? Rather than having to take you in round 1 and different things like that. So in this situation, Keith, there are going to be some teams that look at Keionte Sadiq like, man, we do need a tight end, but could we get a guy in rounds 2 and 3? And that's what we're doing here. So, Keith, when you look at this situation, Keionte Sadiq versus Oscar Delp, would you rather have Keionte Sadiq in round 1 or wait to day 2, whether second or third round, and snatch up Oscar Delp, who's another explosive athlete, big frame? We know what he can do. Georgia just didn't showcase what he could do, but we know what he could do, Keith. What would you rather have, this or that?
DP, this is difficult. For those
that was my plan, Keith.
Who are listening and not watching on YouTube, the whole time DP was just talking, there's a stress look on my face, right? Because I am trying to figure out how do I work this, right? And I usually do a good job of having balanced conversations and figuring my way through a process. Oh man, this is tough, DP. I am going to do this.
To the fire, baby.
I'm gonna go Keionte Sadiq. I'm gonna go Keionte Sadiq in the first round. This is difficult because we put Keionte Sadiq in the Vernon Davis category, right? Of freak athlete. And then we put Oscar Delp in. I said this, and I'll double down and say it again. If you put him and Colston Loveland next to each other, they probably profile very similar. So another very talented player, right? So looking at it from that perspective makes it difficult, but I'm gonna go Keionte Sadiq because of the run blocking. and how willing and physically dominant he could be. And I think there's still another level that he can reach as far as being a run blocker, just learning from experience and things like that.
Yeah.
That I like Kenyon Sadiq, and I said this before on this pod. I like him as just categorizing him as an offensive weapon, right? And I've
Yeah.
even made the statement before. He's a player that if everybody thinks that they would take him at 20 or 18, I may be a team that say, you know what, I want him higher than that, right? Just because of his versatility and athletic testing and what he showed on film. So I'm gonna go Kenyon Sadiq, and that's really difficult, right? But I'm gonna stay true to what I've always said. I felt like Oscar Delp was a high second round pick, right? I've always given him a second round grade, so I'm gonna stay true to that. But I'm gonna go Kenyon Sadiq in this situation.
Yeah, no, Sadiq is definitely the better blocker of the two. It's still with like a ton of room to develop, which he talked about, at the combine. It's like, yeah, I want to get better with my strain at the top of the rep, longer in the rep. I want to be able to hold up against these edge defenders and everything else in the NFL. And again, even with the receiving skill set, like I think there's more development to be had with him from yards after contact and yards after the catch and everything. Where he sometimes he just loses balance. Like, hey, can we get you working with what's my man name? Whoever Alvin Kamara's trainer and get that contact balance. Alvin Kamara probably has arguably top 5 contact balance of all players in the NFL. Just pin balls and stays upright, right? And everything. But if you can get that contact balance for Sadiq, you feel really good about what he can be as a weapon. But like you said, putting him as an OW, Keith, the offensive weapon, that feels right. Like you can flex him out to the slot. I think you can flex him at the Z spot. You can flex him at the X. I think a creative OC has to be smart to. I always go back to watching Tom Brady. My my favorite quarterbacks of all time, Cam Newton, Tom Brady. I watched both of their careers, just highly invested in. And I remember watching the Patriots where they'll come out in 12 and motion their tight ends to the X and Z receiver spot and put their receivers in the slot. And now you sitting there as a defense trying to figure out, well, do we stay in man to man? Like, because then that means my linebackers got to go out there in the cornerback, areas, and my corners walk down into the nickel. And then like, screw it, we're going in zone. And then they get a seam route for, a big 20-yard play. And it was like, you just play right into our hands. I think that's the type of stuff you could do with a Kenyon Sadiq. It's just create advantageous situations, Keith. But also, I agree with number one. I'm going Kenyon Sadiq as well. And I wanted to be different, but I was like, I can't lie. But I really love Kenyon Sadiq in that situation. And just overall, Keith, I think Oscar Delp, though, and I want people to understand this. Oscar Delp, to me, if you said, DP, I have a crystal ball. I'm looking 5 years into the future. And Oscar Delp is a top 2 tight end in this class. I'd be like, I'm not surprised. You know what I mean? Like, we've been talking about him for 3 years now. Like, and we honestly, I think we said this, kid, like, man, I wish he transferred and left Georgia and when Carson Beck left. This is a super talented, athletically gifted, physically gifted tight end prospect who looks the part. He's an LTPer. He looks the part. But then also he plays the part too. And I always go back to that. Like when I think was it Tennessee in 2024, they really got him going in that game. And he's out here routing up defensive backs and double moving high-low bracket coverages. And, him and Carson Beck got it going. And he's a functional blocker. You know what I mean? I think, it's like he's not – no disrespect to Brock, but I thought Brock Bowers was like a below average run blocker. I felt like he gave it his all. He just didn't have the physicality at the point of attack to really hold up coming out. Oscar Delp's a solid blocker, but Kenyon Sadiq is a much better and a more diverse blocker. He can get you slice action. He can you can do pin and pull action when he's pinning down on the edge rusher. He can get up to the second level, pick off linebackers and things like that. I think there's some technical aspects of Oscar Delp blocking that you could work on to get him to be a more sound and foundational blocker in the run game.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, and I think this was probably maybe the most difficult one we do. We'll see with this next matchup that we have, but I think going with either player, like you can't go wrong, right? And this could have easily been a tight end 1 versus tight end 2 conversation had Oscar Delp had the production, right, to match it and kind of build that momentum throughout the entire draft cycle, DP. But I just going back to my point when I said this is that him going higher, DP, the Kansas City Chiefs are very interesting to me. And those Baltimore Ravens, those are two teams that if he goes there, I think people gonna be like, how did they end up with him? Right. Like I just something in me tells me like watch out for those two teams because they'll be willing to take the swing on it. And they've had success, right? Like they are accomplished general managers, accomplished franchises. Like they can go do that and don't have to worry about any criticism. And people are only gonna be like, you know what? That was probably a really good selection. So just watching out for those two teams and it's positions of need for both teams. But DP, let's do this, man. Let's go to the wideouts, right? The nasty wideouts, man. Let's have some fun. Denzel Boston versus Malachi Fields. Are we taking Denzel Boston in the first round, or are you going to wait to round 2 to draft Malachi Fields? Let's discuss that coming up next.
If you've ever opened your bank account and thought, where did all my money go? You're not alone. Keeping track of subscriptions, spending, and bills can get overwhelming fast. That's where Rocket Money comes in, helping you take control of your finances all in one place. It tracks all your subscriptions in one spot and can help cancel the ones you don't need with just a few taps. It automatically categorizes your spending so you can actually see where your money is going. And you can set budgets, get alerts, and stay on top of upcoming bills. It just makes everything feel more organized and gives you a clearer picture of your finances day to day. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Join at rocketmoney.com/locked-on. That's rocketmoney.com/locked-on. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen of the day. And thank you for making Locked On Podcast Network, the number one sports podcast network in America. It's all because of you. The battle of the X receivers, Keith. The battle of the big possession guys. Those guys that play downright physical and aggressive at the catch point. Two of the best high pointing and just catch radius receivers in the 2026 NFL Draft. You have Denzel Boston out of Washington and Malachi Fields, former Virginia Cavalier, who transferred to Notre Dame. Keith, would you rather have Denzel Boston late round 1 or get a Malachi Fields, let's say late round 2, early round 3?
Oh, DP, you say late round 2, early round 3. I think that is immense value for Malachi Fields. So I'm going with Malachi Fields on this one. This is when I get back to my roots, right? I get back to pounding the table, standing on a mountain hill by my doggone self, the Malachi Fields mountain, right? And saying, listen, the outside of the 40-yard dash, up into the NFL Combine, he was one of the fastest rising draft prospects. And I think it's because what he did at the Senior Bowl got people to go back to the film to be like, oh, wait, okay, I get it. This is why Keith kept putting him in the first round of mock drafts. This is a big 6'4" wide receiver who's physical, can go get the ball at the catch point, but he's had surprising quickness, right? And so I look at that and Denzel Boston, I think there's questions about his 40 time also, right? So
yeah, he didn't run it.
Yeah, he didn't. And Malachi Fields probably should have took a page on my guidebook. Right?
The same thing.
Left it alone. And let people wonder. And I said it because I didn't see a 4.6 on film for Malachi Fields, right? If you told me he ran a 4.49, I would have said great. If you told me he ran a 4.55, I would have said expectations, right? Probably that sounds about right. But I'm gonna go with Malachi Fields in this situation over the Denzel Boston because I think they're very comparable. They're different, but they're very similar as far as kind of knowing what you're getting. You're getting a big-bodied X wide receiver who you think should be your possession receiver, right? Who should win in the short to intermediate parts of the field that can go up and get the football. So if you're getting something so similar, this is when I talk about the value part of it, right? If you have the opportunity to draft that in the second round and address another position in the first round, I think you go for it. I think a team that like and I can't remember the Dallas Cowboys draft picks, but second round pick, third round pick. If they looking at this scenario, they should definitely do. and go after like that, so that way they could address other positions. DP, but I'm gonna go Malachi Fields.
Yeah, this was tough because I like both of these dudes. We both do, and like I said, Fields probably, did I see 4.6 on? No, I thought it was more 4.55 guy. In that range. I felt like he was a guy that, especially at first and second level, is where he really made his money in terms of separation. But I like, and then of course the ball skills, the back, like there's no throw that's outside of his range and his area code.
Mm-hmm.
Like this dude is like a satellite. Like he picks up everything, right? And I feel really good about him going into the NFL. Of like, you know what? I think I came on here when we did his profile. I said my comp was like Brandon Marshall. And I going, just over the past couple of weeks, I've like just been going through my reports or a Bleach Report, and Brandon Marshall would be like that high end. Like, man, if he hits and you feel like you struck gold and you struck a gem, you got a Brandon Marshall-esque type of player. I think it's floor. And then some people are like, well, that's a good floor. I think it's Cortland Sutton. Like, and Cortland Sutton's been a very productive player when healthy.
Yeah, and he's just been he's been in Denver, right? Which Denver is not a big market, and we've discussed this before, right? Like being the number 2 wide receiver in Dallas versus being the number 2 wide receiver in Denver is totally different tax brackets as far as popularity and recognition and things like that. So I'm with you on that. I didn't think about Cortland Sutton, but that's not a bad floor at all. I mean, you're still talking about what Pro Bowl caliber
player, man. But so that's how I feel about Fields. I going, Boston was a little difficult because I had to take off the Keon Coleman rose-colored glasses. I don't know if they're rose-colored at this point, but Keon Coleman glasses. And I was like, man, I was like, man, I don't want to fall into that trap again of a big body guy who I clearly can see is quicker, a little bit faster than his body type would suggest. And he gets to the league and can't separate, right? But I think watching Boston, out of these two guys, here's how I would give it. I think ball skills, I'm giving that to Fields. I think catch radius and ball skills is to Fields.
Okay.
Like this dude can absolutely just extend complete. Like he's fearless as all get out of fully extending. And you don't see guys give that type of effort. Like they'll go up and go for like he goes full extension. Like he's diving for every type of throw. Even when it's not a diving type of situation, he fully extends and maximizes. He's 6'4", like 225. He maximizes his frame. Where I think I'm gonna go Boston late round 1. I think Boston's a better route runner in terms of like short area quickness, which we talked about when we broke down like his scouting report. I love Boston's ability to sink his hips and pivot out. I think he runs better the whip routes and pivot routes in the short area, being able to be 6'3", 6'4", drop his weight and work back and change directions is really good. That he fits kind of what teams look for now too. Both of them do essentially, but he lives like he showcased more of living in the realm and areas of the field where NFL teams are trying to dominate. That's typically the middle of the field. Like if you're going to give me like with 2 high safety shells, for those who don't know, that's called middle of the field open. When you got single high, it's middle of the field closed. Teams want to take away the deep ball, Keith. So what does that mean? The middle of the field is wide open. Like you just got to work through navigate through the bodies of the linebackers or whoever, depending on the scheme you're dealing with. If it's a zone, you got guys dropping off and stuff. Weave and navigate through that, which Denzel Boston's really good at. I think this is a dude too. Well, I think both of them are good at it, but there's plays where they use him. They motion him into a short motion, and he crackbacks on defensive ends at Washington as a run blocker, right? Sealing the edge and different things like that. So I'm gonna go close, but I'm gonna go with Boston. I think this is a guy that could be a 1 in the NFL, develop into that. We talked about it when we did our mock draft. Had him go. You had him going to San Fran. Was it San Fran? Yeah, I think you had him going to San Fran. No, Philly. It's Philly.
Yeah, I had him. Omar Cooper went to San Fran.
Omar Cooper went to San Fran. We've paired him to San Fran in previous mocks before, which feels right. So it's close because I love both of these. I had a first round grade up until the combine. I was like, I think Fields is going to go back into round 1, and then he ran the 4.6, and I'm like, oh, that dream is over. NFL, we know how this thing works, Keith. NFL teams are like, you got a 4.61. I can. What did Brandon Bean say when Keon Coleman ran that 4.5, whatever? Oh, that's great. That means I can get him later, right? As I said earlier, the discount. teams are going to rather like, you know what? Let me get the discount possession X receiver in on day 2 rather than drafting one in late 1. But I'm gonna lean Denzel Boston slightly.
Okay, all right. Well, DP, that wraps up another episode, man, of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to end this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydays. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That right there is my guy, my co-host, Mr. Damian Parson. You can find him on X at DP_NFL. And like we like to see, man, y'all come talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts, to get the latest episode as soon as it is available. On tomorrow's show, we're breaking down Clemson defensive tackle Peter Woods, a guy whose stock has fallen this season, but should it fall as we get ready for the 2026 NFL Draft next week? Come and join the conversation on tomorrow for the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.